So in the last episode, I touched a little bit on Jake's journey within Rebuild Physio and how he got pain-free for Christmas last year. And I chatted through a little bit about how you can get pain-free yourself for Christmas this year. Well, in this episode, what I'd love to do is a bit more of a deep dive into Jake's journey and just show you the sort of the key moments and key things that we did with Jake that helped him get from this place of 13 weeks of field physio to playing football pain-free and doing his first ever marathon in 6 months' time. And to get stuck right in, I want to just identify the 3 key problems that we noticed when Jake first came to us. And the first problem is that he was stuck in a little bit of limbo land. He was in this place where he was pain-free but not exactly fixed. The second thing that we identified is that his traditional physio methods that he'd been trying for the last 13 weeks were stopping too soon. And the third problem was that he was left in this place of sort of frustration and confusion and not really knowing where to go next. So just to pick apart that first problem a wee bit more whenever I referred to limbo land, what I mean by that, it's this weird middle ground where a lot of people find themselves that actually they've done a bit of rehab, they're feeling a little bit better, but they know that something isn't quite right. They know that they couldn't go for those big goals. Jake himself knew that yes, he could walk around day to day, but there's no way he could go on the football pitch with confidence. There's no way he could even run in a straight line without pain. The biggest issue with this limbo phase for people isn't so much about the physicality of it and the impact that it has physically on you, but actually the impact that it has on you mentally, because you really start to lose trust in your body and you really start to lose confidence and lose that sort of hope that you're ever going to actually get pain-free and back to your goal. And then because there's no clear path forward, you just sort of start to drift and you stay in this phase, or you can stay in this phase for a very long period of time, not really knowing where the next steps are and what you're supposed to be doing to get out of this rut that you're stuck in. And that's exactly where Jake was with his ankle. Whenever he came to us, he had tried the 13 weeks of physio. He felt like he got a little bit of help, but he really wasn't anywhere near where he needed to be in order to get to his goal. So he found himself spinning the wheels and sort of drifting when it comes to his pain and his progress. So the second problem that we chatted about there was that his traditional rehab had stopped too soon. So Jake was first told that within 4 weeks they hoped that he would be back running, and within 6 weeks he'd be back to football. From the get-go, this was a bit of an unrealistic timeline, and this became quite apparent whenever Jake got to the 13-week mark and he looked back over his progress. And as I said, he could go about life day to day pain-free, but he wasn't anywhere near those goals of running or anywhere near those goals of football. And the problem was that his traditional physio stopped too soon. It got to the point where he got symptom relief, yes, but he didn't have any training readiness. He wasn't ready to train. He wasn't ready to embark on these higher level movements. And for a lot of traditional physio, generally the rule of thumb is once the pain stops, generally they'll say to their clients, okay, gradually return to X, Y, and Z. So for Jake, gradually return to running, gradually build up your running, gradually return to football. But there's no real science or thought or process in how to actually do that. And as a patient or as a client, it can get really stressful in that phase because you feel like you've been given the green light to go ahead, but you don't really know what to do with that green light. And again, this has a massive mental impact as well as physical, because it leads to hesitation, it leads to fear, it leads to re-injury a lot of the time, and therefore it whacks your confidence again and you sort of roll back to square one. And this is exactly the problem that gets people stuck in that cycle of injury, a little bit of rehab, and then re-injury again. And then there's that third problem that Jake was struggling with, that's that problem of sort of frustration and confusion. And the biggest issue with this one is that he was getting conflicting advice. What his physio told him was maybe different to what his football coach told him. Maybe it was different to how a different friend had dealt with a ligament tear in their ankle, which was maybe different to what he was reading on Google, which was probably different to what I was saying as well. And this conflicting evidence and advice is really, really tricky whenever you're the person with pain. You start to question your own decision making, and you start to question your own body's ability to ever actually get out of this pain, and it starts to become really demotivating. And you start to think that you're the problem, that you don't really fit into any of these categories of advice. But in reality, the real issue is that the system that you're sort of being forced into is broken in itself. It was never designed to actually build you back to full capacity and get you back on the football pitch. The system is very reactive, not proactive. It focuses on getting you out of pain, dealing with flare-ups, masking over your symptoms, and hoping that with a bit of time, the tissues will heal themselves, and with a little bit of confidence and luck on your side, you'll get back onto the football pitch. The problem with that is that breeds re-injury, and the problem with re-injuries is that has another knock-on effect on your confidence, and you start to really label yourself as this person who's injury prone, and you always feel like you're a little bit broken. So those 3 problems might sound relatable to you. Those are the biggest problems we identified whenever we really analysed Jake's journey so far over the first 13 weeks of his injury. And his journey in sort of the old system and that broken system was quite typical of many people. He got injured and he booked an appointment. In that appointment, he was diagnosed with a ligament tear, and then he was given a few banded exercises. He was told that it'll be okay and to come back in 4 to 6 weeks once the swelling is settled and once he feels like he's gotten on better with those banded exercises. He was given a bit of advice about maybe rest and ice compression, footwear, things like that. And then after his next appointment, he would come in saying 3 to 4 weeks. He would get reassessed, they would maybe give him the same exercises, maybe just a stronger band, and the same thing would continue, go on for 3 to 4 weeks. Hopefully next time you come in, the pain will have continued to reduce, and so forth and so forth. But the problem with this is that there's no structure, there's no measurable progress, and most importantly, there's no roadmap. And it's not until you're at the end of that pathway that you start to realize that you're actually more uncertain about yourself and about your injury than you were before you entered that pathway. Start to question, is this normal recovery, or is there something that's gone wrong within your recovery, or is there something wrong with you or your injury? But there's nothing wrong with any of those things. The problem, as I said, is the system. The system itself was broken. It focuses on short-term goals, quick fixes, tick a few boxes like improved range of movement and reduced swelling, and then discharges you and sends you on your way to build up gradually. But the problem is that pain-free doesn't equal ready, because you haven't built the capacity and you haven't built the confidence. You've simply just got some temporary relief. And as a result, then you go back to your training, you go back to your goal. Whenever you're not ready, you get re-injured, and once again, you blame yourself and you think that it's yourself is the problem, or your injury area is the problem, and that this is just going to be you injury prone forever. However, there can be a very simple shift here that completely changes the journey for you. And this shift is recognizing that proper rehab doesn't stop at pain-free. That's only when the journey begins. And that is the cornerstone and the foundation of everything that we do at Rebuild Physio. And that is the basis of everything that built out Jake's plan and got into that place of football pain-free and running his first ever marathon. We're not interested in getting people just reduced pain and pain management. We want to get people pain-free and back to doing what they love with complete confidence in themselves. In fact, we want to get people better than what they were before they even got injured. And this all starts with understanding the root cause behind their injury, helping them to rebuild their movement quality and their strength coordination, and making sure that they have a progressive approach that takes them right up to their goal. This is structured and this is measurable, and it's all based off objective data. And this is exactly what we did with Jake to get him right up to that full stage of feeling capable. So for Jake, he'd been in that place of frustration, he'd been stuck in that rut with his rehab. He came to us, we got a comprehensive assessment, we answered any questions, any concerns, anything that he had. Most people are skeptical of online physio, so this was a bit of a back and forth conversation, answering any questions, clearing up any concerns, and then getting his roadmap in place and getting him ready to go. Straight away, Jake's confidence started to improve because he had a pathway in front of him. He could actually see how he was going to get from A to B. We addressed the weaknesses at the foundational level, and we built it up through movement patterns, dynamic movements, plyometrics, right up to the highest level of strength training that he could be doing. We took him from a place of an ATFL tear to being able to go onto the pitch in slippery conditions with full confidence just a few months into his plan. And the biggest turning point for Jake was actually having someone that listened to him, that understood where he had been and understood exactly how we were going to get him out of this rut and up to this place of performance. And the easiest way to show this to Jake was through our 3-phase pathway: the stabilize, the build and the perform phase, showing him how every stage was going to meet the necessary requirements to get him to his goal. So we didn't use any of that see how it goes, chat to you in 3 weeks. We just had clear direction and clear focus and complete clarity on the process. So weeks 1 to 6 for Jake was his time in the stabilize phase. This is how he got pain-free for Christmas. So we wanted to reduce any sensitivity that was left in the ankle. We wanted to restore his full range of movement, but then we didn't just look at the ankle, we looked at the whole body, we looked at the whole lower limb and how it coordinates together. And that's where we built out Jake's own 20% rule and made sure that everything was doing its job at a foundational level from a strength point of view, and that everything could coordinate and communicate well together as we moved him through the phases of the stabilize stage. He started to understand the connection between his foot and his ankle and his knee and his hip and his lower back. And he started to utilize all of his muscles in the way that he needs to for his goal of running in straight lines and also his goal of change direction. By 6 weeks, Jake was already pain-free walking and jogging, and he'd started into his first football training session. But most importantly, he had confidence again, and he had hope that there was light at the end of the tunnel. He could see that in the new year, he was going to get back to football. That's whenever we moved him into the build phase. So this for Jake was between week 7 and 18. And this is where most physios skip. As I said, most physios discharge you when you're pain-free. For Jake, his journey was only beginning. It was all about building up his capacity and his confidence. We started with plyometrics, then we built up his confidence and change of direction drills, and then we got him into an established gym routine where we helped him to build strength, work on his power and work on his speed. And at week 14, he returned fully to football training and went for his first 20 minutes on the pitch during a match. At this stage, there was absolutely no pain, but there was still nerves, and that's what the build phase is for. It's all about building confidence. We are expecting nerves. We are expecting little flare-ups along the way. This is all part of adaptation, and this was communicated clearly throughout the process. After Jake was fully returned to football and was pain-free and feeling confident again, we were able to enter into the perform phase, and this is whenever he started his marathon training block. And the most important thing here was routine. Jake had a really busy life. He was trying to balance work and long work hours alongside his life, alongside football and alongside his marathon training. So we had to find a structure that was going to work for him, that he could keep up with his training, keep up with his strength training, keep up with any rehab necessary to make sure that he got through his marathon pain-free. And that's exactly what he did. In May last year, Jake completed the Belfast Marathon pain-free, and he completed his football season pain-free as well. 18 months since we first started working with Jake, he is still injury free and he is still playing football. And that's a really important part, is we worked with Jake through the build phase and the perform phase to make sure that his injury risk was low so that he could continue his sport and actually perform at a better level than he ever has done before with more confidence because he has a reduced injury risk. So the big lesson from all of this is that Jake didn't just fix his ankle, he didn't just get pain-free. He built a body and a mindset that was capable. He learned the why behind every stage of his plan, and he learned the difference between just feeling better and feeling ready for sport. Because proper rehab is all about building trust in your body again. When you've been spinning the wheels at the rehab or you've been bounced around from physio and physio, the biggest thing that's going to be the problem is the trust in your body. And that is exactly what a proper rehab plan should do, is build you back that confidence in your body. So the one biggest takeaway that I want you to get from this episode is to stop aiming for just getting pain-free and start aiming for resilience. Pain-free is just the halfway point. I would actually argue that pain-free is just the starting point. It is by no means the finish line. There's a lot of work that needs done in order to get you resilient and back to being better than you were before your injury. You see, anyone can help you temporarily feel better. The real work is in making you feel better long term so that you can be like Jake 18 months later, still being pain-free and able to push on with your performance. Because there is no point in investing the time and money and energy into physio if it's not going to stick long term. So if you're listening to this and you were where Jake was before he started working with us, I would like you to ask yourself these few questions. Number one is, has your pain actually been solved or has your pain just been managed? Number two, do you have a structured plan that actually shows you what is next? And number three, do you know how to test if your body is truly ready to get to your goal? If the answer to any of those is no, the solution is not just another round of rest and a gradual return to running or random banded exercise. You need a proper system, one that takes you from pain to performance. And that's exactly what we do at Rebuild Physio, because you see, Jake's journey wasn't unique from an injury point of view. We see ligament tears all the time. Jake's journey was unique because he chose to do it properly. Most people will stay stuck settling for short-term relief and consistently wondering why their body keeps breaking down. But the ones who commit to the full process and see value in building, not just healing, they're the ones who never go backwards. So next time you find yourself thinking, oh, I really need to get this injury sorted this time, make sure that you don't opt just for quick relief, a quick paper over the crack. Make sure that you opt for long-term resilience. And if you want to know if Rebuild Physio is a physio for you to help you on this journey, just drop us a message with the word interested on Instagram and we can have a chat and answer any questions that you might have. And if you want a bit more information on Jake's journey, you can download his case study somewhere around this video, which shows you a little bit more information around the step-by-step journey of how he went from 13 weeks of field physio to playing football pain-free and doing his first ever marathon in 6 months.